Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Talking with the Experts.
In episode 467, Jim Huebner discusses with us how we can make our brand last in the marketplace.
And I mean, it was like light bulbs just went on, and it's kind of like I feel like sometimes our job is just to be the communicator of the obvious, because the things we do sometimes, when you get to the end and you go, well, duh. That's pretty obvious, but sometimes it takes a lot of kicks in the head and kicks in the seat or whacks on the side of the head to see it, and fortunately we get to be the ones that help do that. So we whack a lot of heads.
Talking with the Experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Today, my guest is Jim Huebner, and we are going to be talking about how to make your brand last in the market. Now, Jim is the founder and CEO of Huebner Integrated Marketing. It's a 34-year-old company devoted to helping manufacturing brands become more relevant to their customers and sales channels and to become more profitable in the process. Over the years, Jim's firm has helped brands find their most relevant marketing strategy through a very unique process, combining in-depth brand positioning study and a strategic marketing plan. So no matter the product or the industry, this process has proven to result in light bulb moments for Jim's clients and in many a turning point for struggling businesses. Welcome, Jim, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. And I wonder who wrote that, because that was pretty good.
It was pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah,
it was wonderful.
Good.
Jim, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into market branding.
Sure. So I started my agency 34 years ago, 1989, and we lived in a duplex, and I worked from the duplex, and it was a pretty humble start. You know, when it got too hot in the summer, I moved my office to the basement, and where it was a little cooler. And then we didn't have air conditioning, so finally I worked a deal out with a local bank to trade services for some office space. So that's kind of how I started. And really I had clients like a local car dealer, a local bank, local optometrist, insurance company. I had kind of all the local businesses sort of wrapped up. And then we landed our first manufacturer in the mid 90s. And well, there we got to do some trade advertising and some national, international publications, and got to go to trade shows and plan for those. And I found that a lot more exciting and interesting. So I kind of moved away from the local to more niche manufacturing, particularly manufacturers who have dealer networks or outside sales channels who are dependent on the manufacturer, and found that very rewarding. And that's really what we've done for, almost the last 30 years, is just kind of focused on manufacturing and marketing within that. and helping, companies find their way. Like you had mentioned, we have a process called, it's the Relevancy Report, and it's just a study of how our clients could become more relevant to their customers. And sometimes it's just in messaging, and sometimes it's because they're already doing a lot of the things they need to do, but it's just about how they refer to themselves or refer to what they're doing or their products. And sometimes it's about, it may be a new distribution plan, or it might be a different way of pricing structure, or those kind of things. Everything related to marketing, though, and that's really what the Relevancy Report, and then we build a roadmap after that of how to then communicate and build on kind of our findings. So
do you find the marketing niche different to the normal business type things, or is it equal or the same?
Well, of course, I'd like to believe that everything revolves around marketing. Marketing and sales. Who was it that said, nothing happens till somebody sells something? So that's pretty true. I mean, the accountants don't have anything to count, and the HR department doesn't have anybody to hire if somebody doesn't sell something. So, and how those salespeople get in front of people, really, marketing has a lot to do with that. Marketing softens that path and shortens that path to the sale. Hopefully, that's the goal. That's what marketing is supposed to do. And so that's, for me, that's pretty exciting, pretty integral to business. Like I said, nothing happens till somebody sells something. So let's try to help people sell things, and marketing is part of that. And understanding what needs to be communicated, what's most important to the prospective customers. What stories do they need to hear? What understanding do they need to have about the product or service? All that's important, and all that's wrapped up in marketing.
Yeah. So I guess how do we do our brand positioning so that we do stand out in the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. And our approach, every firm like ours, marketing agency, has a proprietary, system or way of doing it. And so I don't claim to be any necessarily unique in that we have a process, but we do have a process that over 34 years seems to work pretty well, or provides a lot of clarity. I literally have had CEOs tell me when we did the Relevancy Report that it was absolutely the best money they'd ever spent on marketing, because I think the thing it does is it provides all this clarity to, what we need to do and say. And a lot of times it's kind of like, I was talking to somebody earlier today. It's like when you're on the inside of a bottle, you can't describe what it's like on the outside. And you almost need an outsider to come in and say, okay, here's what the market thinks about you. Here's what your customers think about you. Here's what your prospective customers think about you. Here's what other vendors who sell or who you compete with, or vendors who sell to you. Here's what everybody, kind of on a global basis, here's how you're perceived in the marketplace. And here's what's good about that. And here's what's bad about that. And actually, most importantly, here's where the opportunities are within that. And that's what we try to provide them. And so that then in turn gives us the foundation for building, the brand position. Here's how we're going to set ourselves apart in the marketplace. And again, one of the things I'll tell people is, when we go into this, our clients usually know 80 to 90% of the information we uncover when we do the research. It's that 10%, those that provide the aha moments, that where all the value is. I can give you an example, and honestly, in my book, the book is a business fable, The Irrelevant Old Brand, and so it's told in a business fable format. But it's, most of the stories in the book that we tell are things that really happened to us, maybe in a different industry, but they're similar situations. But we did have the company that the book is about is a real company. Changed the names, changed the places, and all that. But they made a product that was used on robots in deep sea exploration, mainly searching for oil. So, and they were having trouble. They were a small company, but highly profitable, and sold all over the world, this product. And because there's engineers and sea exploration all over the world. And so they were finding, as they go to the trade shows, they were starting to find that they were losing some traction and losing ground, and particularly on the lower end things, products, they were losing sales that they normally had just gotten. And what we were kind of finding out was the procurement departments only looked at price. So that's all that kind of mattered to them. But then as we dug into who is buying the products, still, it was the engineers. The engineers would spec the product in and ask that my client's product actually be used in this robot. And so we're like, well, that's interesting. Let's talk to the engineers and find out. And, you know, a lot of the, I don't know if you talk to engineers much. I love engineers. I'm surrounded by them in the community we live in. There's lots of engineers here, but they're very pragmatic and practical and not super right-brained, oftentimes, not always. But and so it was kind of hard pulling the information out. But one conversation it came down to, and this is that 10% I was talking about. I remember talking to this engineer and I said, so why is it that you always spec in our client's product? Why is it? Why don't you go with a cheaper one? And he goes, you got to understand, you got $1 million robot on the ocean floor. The last thing you're concerned about is the extra $15 you spent on a product that is absolutely going to not fail, because it's too big a risk. And that provided all the clarity we needed. Our client had always been talking about their quality, but the quality didn't mean anything. You know, quality was sort of what is quality? I mean, everybody claims quality. So it's to the point where quality is almost meaningless now, unless you can define what that means. And so we said, so it is the quality, but what is it about the quality that makes somebody want to buy it? And it was the dependability. So the whole focus we took off of quality and we put it all on, and all the messaging was surrounded about the dependability, the reliability of the product. And I mean, it was like light bulbs just went on. And it's kind of like, I feel like sometimes our job is just to be the communicator of the obvious, because the things we do sometimes, when you get to the end and you go, well, duh. That's pretty obvious, but sometimes it takes a lot of kicks in the head and kicks in the seat or whacks on the side of the head to see it. And fortunately, we get to be the ones that help do that. So we whack a lot of heads.
It's important, I guess, to find the relevant words to use, so that prospective clients can understand and find that unique value proposition that that will be beneficial to the client when they purchase that widget or whatever it is that they're buying.
For sure. Yeah, you want to tap into that, into one of those emotions, and fear, in their case, fear of malfunction or of the complete project being a total flop when they're 20,000 feet below sea level and all of a sudden the lights go out or whatever. That's where you have to instill that confidence in your product in that particular situation. But everybody has that same kind of scenario in their business. There's something that they're doing. There's a reason they have customers, and it's figuring out how to tap into that kind of primal basic fear or goal or aspiration, or whatever it is, tapping into that emotion and feeling that the prospective customer and your customers are sensing and are hoping, to alleviate by buying your product. That's finding that is kind of what we do and what we're all about.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's an important process is to, get down to the nitty-gritties of everything that's going on within the business and finding that those unique words that describe what the business does, and so it makes them stand out from their competition.
for sure. Mark Twain said the difference between uh, a word and the right word is the difference between the lightning bug and lightning. It's like you're saying, the right word is everything.
It is, yeah. And
Yeah,
to find that word there sometimes you're right, you can't say it when you're inside the business. You need someone from outside that can, interpret those um, processes and find the words that escape the uh, business
yeah.
owner.
And it was funny after we had that conversation with the engineer that we went back and looked, and there was this common kind of in the email surveys we had done, there was this common kind of commonality of words like dependability, reliability, I can count on it. And we just hadn't put it all together until that one conversation, kind of brought it all to light. And we went, oh, okay, this is what they're all talking about. It's not that it's the cheapest. It's not that their shipping is the fastest. It's not anything. It's just that it's super, super dependable. And what was amazing about that story is when we were on the tour of the factory, there was a lady sitting there at this table, and I talk about this in the book. She was sitting at this table and she was plugging these things in, and if it works, you put it in the good to go box, and if it didn't work, she threw it in a discard box. And I said, so what's going on here? They said, well, we hand check every single piece that comes out off the line to make sure it works. And I said, is that unusual? I mean, that sounds like a normal thing to do. What they said, no, our competition, they batch test. So 1 out of every 100, they test to make sure the process is right, but they don't test each one. Well, that led to, okay, it's no wonder that theirs is the most reliable, most dependable. It's because they're hand testing every single one. They know for a fact it's going to work because they already tested it, instead of 1 in 100 shot,
Yeah, and you might be just unlucky enough to get that 1 in 100 that doesn't work.
Exactly. And
the other 99 are perfect.
Yep. And that all led into that story then of dependability, reliability. But again, unless you put all that together and have somebody help you put all that together, it's hard to take all those pieces and make it make sense sometimes. I've seen marketing departments that are pretty good at doing those things in-house by themselves. I've seen some bad ones too, but yeah, it just takes a lot of questioning and thinking and exploration and talking to the right people that I think those things do come to light then. So
eventually, yes, eventually. And then you get that, that aha moment where it all comes together and, oh, why didn't I think of that before?
Right. And it can happen quickly. Generally, it doesn't. You got to, sift through a lot of, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. You got to sift through a lot of surveys and interviews with people and things before you get that aha moment. And it can be aggravating at times when you feel like you're not getting it, especially if the client's impatient and wants the answer, and we're like, we told you it was going to take 6 weeks, so we need the whole 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're probably a bit like me, a bit impatient, and they want it yesterday, not in 6 weeks time.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah. So what's the name of your book again, Jim?
It's The Irrelevant Old Brand, and it's just a business fable that talks about a company that kind of lost its way. And it kind of started with, I was actually going to write a different book. I was going to write The Irrelevant Old Man, because once you hit this certain age, 45, 50, I don't know about women. I'm assuming women might feel the same way, but guys, at least a lot of guys I know, kind of hit this point where you're thinking, so is it going to even matter that I was here doing anything? I mean, what's the point and all that? And so I was going to write a book about that, and just studied a lot of some psychologists and some theologians and business people and philosophers and all sorts of things, and compiled all this information and research on this. And I was talking to my friend one night about it, or at breakfast one morning, actually. And my best friend from college, and he's very wise, has written a bunch of books himself. And I was telling him about it, and he goes, well, that's interesting. Because what I kind of surmised was, for a life to matter, to be meaningful or relevant, the life needs to give and not just take. And that didn't sound real profound, but it's amazing how much research is out there about it. Even just research by Viktor Frankl's one of them. He's a what do they call it? Psychotherapist, I think he is. And Jordan Peterson's commented on it, and lots of theologians have commented on it. And it's like, what you find is a life that pours itself out actually raises in relevance and meaning to the world, and as a result, to yourself. And my friend said, well, that's what you do for businesses. It's like you help them find how they can be most relevant, how they can give most to their customers, and that's what makes them more important to their customers. And I thought, wow, that's probably the first book I need to write. So I set out and wrote this one first, and I am going to write The Irrelevant Old Man next. But that's really what kind of prompted it, because it is what we do for our clients, is we help them figure out, how can you be a must-have, to your clients? How can you just not be an also-ran, but be a must-have? Like, we can work with these other vendors, but we have to have these guys. And because there's lots of examples of companies like that out there, I think about, well, I have a framework that we use. It's 4 parts. It's the GIVE framework, and it's G is grateful and generous, and I is inspired difference, V is value exceeds price, and E is an endless quest. And so it starts with being grateful and generous. So that sounds like very personal, but at the same time, it also relates to the culture of a company. If a company is naturally just grateful, just for the air they breathe, for the opportunity to work, for customers asking them to do work or to buy their product or whatever, to just be able to be grateful for that. There's actually a study done at the University of, I believe it was Oregon, where they studied that. The research showed that people who are grateful, their brain actually makes them more generous. And so the more grateful you can be, the more generous you're going to be. The more generous you're going to be, the better giver you're going to be, because giving is kind of what it's all about. And I mean, it can be financially giving, but just giving of time, of yourself, and how does that relate to a brand? Well, a brand needs to give in some way to meet a need that nobody else can really meet. And so one of the examples I use for grateful and generous is a company called Jayco, which there's a Jayco, and it's related in Australia. It's a camper van or a caravan manufacturer. And in the US, Jayco was a client of ours for 13 years. And one of the things that was very interesting about them is they were very grateful and generous, particularly to their dealers. They did things for their dealers that nobody else would really do. And as a result, just built this incredible loyalty among the dealer network. And they have since been sold to the mega, conglomerate or whatever. And I don't know, we don't work with them anymore, so I don't know if that culture has changed at all. But when we were working with them, that was one of the things that was really impressive, is is just how loyal their dealers were to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of this grateful and generous kind of spirit that they had. So that was grateful and generous. And then inspired difference. I've in the US, and this is, you're in Australia, so I'm trying to relate some of these examples to you. In the US, there's an airline, Southwest Airlines is a good example of inspired difference. They don't do anything the way other airlines do them. And some people hate that. But what they tapped into was not everybody hates that. Mm. Some people like to pick their seats when they get onto the airplane. Some people want to know 3 months in advance what seat they're going to be sitting in. But what Southwest realizes, it may not even be a majority of people that want to know. They don't mind picking their seat when they get on the plane. And they love the fact that you can check 2 bags free. And they have an incredible rewards program. And so they tapped into all that, and it was like they put their blinders on to what everybody else was doing. And they just said, what do people hate? Let's not do that. I mean, it's the same thing that Steve Jobs, said with Apple, is they said, what do people hate? Let's solve it, and I think that really is where you're going to get your inspired difference is it's not just about being different. It's about being different in a way that's incredibly relevant to tapping in, like we were talking about before, tapping into that deep-seated longing that people have for either that's based on fear or based on love or based on success or financial success or whatever. It's being able to tap into that. And then value exceeds price. I don't know of an example that you can relate to. You don't have Ace Hardware stores, I think, in Australia. So Ace is a small mom and pop, not franchise, hardware store. They're independently owned, but they tap into a big buying network. So they're able to compete with these mega stores. I don't know if you've heard of Home Depot or Lowe's. They're just these huge box stores that sell all sorts of home improvement things. Well, Ace Hardware stores are just these little mom and pop, 5,000 square foot, 8,000 square foot, and these big superstores will come in, and the Ace Hardwares don't go out of business. They keep going. They just, whereas the other big stores, the Walmarts of the world, they'll come in and grocery stores will shut down immediately. Ace Hardwares have been able to hang in there, and why is that? It's because, and their prices are higher, but it's because when you go into an Ace store, you've watched the YouTube video, you know what thingamajig you have to buy, and you know whatchamacallit has to hook onto it. But there's somebody at Ace that knows exactly how to do it. And even though you watch the YouTube video, he'll or she will actually show you how to do it. And it's like, that's where the value of what you're buying is greatly exceeding the price that you're paying. And I have I think Warren Buffett said, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And the greater that discrepancy is between the value of something and the cost of it, the greater, the more relevant that almost has to be. Now, I haven't actually done a study or anything on that, but it just makes sense to me that the more value there is, and people can look at the price and go, well, that was, considering what I'm getting for the price, then that really taps in, I think.
It's like a hairdresser, isn't it? I mean, you can go to, your local franchised one and get a haircut, and they give you no value whatsoever. Right. It's just a haircut. Exactly. But you can go to someone that's more expensive, but it's privately owned, and you get a better experience. Great example. And again, not everybody's going to value that better experience, but is there enough of a market that you can tap into that does value that? And that's what it's all about. It's priceless, isn't it? Yeah, and it's not trying to be everything to everyone, but you're all things to a few, and that's really kind of where you want to be. That's where the most profit is. That's honestly where the most enjoyment is out of your business. And
yeah, that's interesting. I can't really relate to the hair thing because I don't have any hair, but I understand. My wife does. My wife has hair, so
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. No, that's a good example. Then the last one is just the endless quest, and that's just that you can never not pursue being relevant. You can't like let it go to, put it on the shelf for 3 or 5 years. It's an endless quest. You got to constantly be thinking, how can we stay relevant? And you look at Chat GPT today, and now 4, and then whatever's next. Everybody's so scared of it, but it's like in our business, we have to look at how can we use it to better serve our clients.
I love Chat GPT.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, and yet there are content developers out there and writers and who are scared of it. And in our office, we've just said the people that will lose jobs because of Chat GPT are the ones that don't use it. If you're afraid of it and not willing to use it, then yeah, you maybe should be scared. But it's just going to make people better at their jobs. It's like everything else that's come onto the market. Everybody freaked out when the printing press came on and newspapers came on, and then radio is going to put newspaper out of business, and then TV is going to put radio out of business, and then and it's just
look at when we changed centuries. Year 2000 came around, and everyone thought that the world was going to end, and all the computers were going to crash, and because of the 000s. And I thought, really, people were just so small-minded and really not looking at the real point of something.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true. So that's endless quest is, it just can never stop. You got to constantly be looking at what's next, be on the lookout, and embrace it and not run from it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Jim, where can people find you if they want to work with you?
I think the easiest place is probably LinkedIn. And I don't know if that'll be in show notes or anything, but
it will
my
be,
LinkedIn.
yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's just /JW Huebner. So, and then, they can email me too. That's just jimh at huebnermarketing.com. So,
perfect.
I'm
and
pretty
where's your
responsive.
book available?
It's on Amazon. And it's on Barnes and Noble also. So, yeah. And, it's business fable. It was pretty easy to write because it's just telling stories, and I love telling stories. So, and it's just a story of what we've been doing for 34 years, and so it was pretty fun to write. Yeah.
Perfect. Jim, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with the audience today. I've enjoyed learning from you, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity, Rose. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.